Okay, today I'm looking at my Sears Craftsman leaf blower. This thing is quite old, maybe about 15 years old or so, and I haven't used it in a while. I dug it out of the cellar to try and start it, and I gave the pull start a tug here and found that everything moved freely. I was able to pull it, but the rope wouldn't retract. So I ended up digging into the thing here already. I didn't grab the camera for the disassembly process, but now that I've kind of gotten the whole thing apart and I believe I know what's wrong, I'm going to try and document it from here. Okay, so the problem was that, and of course this is the inside of the pull start, you can see I was pulling it and it wasn't really retracting. Of course it's actually moving a little better than it was now, but before it was actually stuck, and pull it all the way out and it wouldn't retract. And what I found was, once I got into it, is that these two screws on these tabs here that kind of hold the outer edge of the mechanism were just too tight, and just loosening them a slight bit caused this thing to be able to move freely and retract like it's supposed to. So I'm going to leave these things loosened. And I think what I'm also going to do is just put a little grease on this just to try and help it for the future. Okay, I've put just the slightest amount of grease on there and kind of tried to work it in. I don't know if that's going to help or hurt over time, but anyway. Alright, the first step in the reassembly is to reattach this cover, which contains the starting mechanism. Slide it over the flywheel and get these holes in this cover lined up with the threaded inserts or threaded holes that are in here, and then screw it back down. And these screws are the ones that came out. They're a little bit longer and have this unthreaded section. There are also a couple of pins in the plastic cover that line up with holes in here, presumably to keep this oriented the right way and get it kind of rough aligned. Alright, one thing I forgot to mention is that when slipping this all together, you have to make sure that these spring-loaded fingers that are mounted on the flywheel are engaging the shaft on the pull start mechanism. Otherwise, things won't work. So there's one here and there's one kind of out of sight here on the other side of the flywheel, and those engage the teeth on this plastic part and are what allows the thing to spin one way and retract the other. Okay, with some fiddling I've got the cover in place, and then I'm going to reinsert these bolts, and I'm just using a 4mm T-handle Allen wrench here to get these in. So I'm just going to find them and then snug them up. Alright, so I've got this back together. I've got the 4 bolts around this part attached. When I tried to screw in this short one that was in the front here, I had it a little crooked and I ended up stripping the threads out. The mating side of it is also plastic and it's very easy to strip. But I think it'll be okay. It just provides some strain relief for the plug wire, so I'm just going to leave it out. But at any rate, everything else seems to be back together. This is still moving freely. So now what I'm going to do is reassemble the strain relief on the pull starter here, and I'll show how that kind of goes back together. Okay, so there's this metal piece that you can lift up, and there is a bolt that goes into there, or screw rather, and this is going to be tricky with 2 hands, so I'll just try to kind of explain what's going to happen. Is the rope, I'm going to pull it out some, get some slack on it, and put it under this tube. Put the tube back down into place and put the screw, and there's a little piece of metal to help hold this down back in. Okay, so there's the arrangement that it came apart in. You can see the pull rope goes under this and then up towards the engine. And then there's this screw that goes into the plastic and this little piece of metal that helps hold this down. And with this, after my experience with the other screw screw in the plastic, I'm going to want to be careful and make sure that I thread this in exactly the way that it came out so that I don't strip the threads. Okay, this is all tightened up and snugged down. I didn't tighten it up too much. I didn't want to strip those plastic threads. So now I'm going to reattach this to the body of the blower. But there's a rubber seal that kind of goes in here that may or may not pop out at some point here if you're fiddling around. So I'm going to make sure that's in, and then just kind of put this back on and realign the body of the blower with the, try to line these holes here as best I can. Okay, so I've got that up and positioned, and then there are 6 screws to hold this back together. There are 2 on either side, and then there's one in the front here on this boss, and one in the back here. So I'll put those in, but I won't tighten them up. I'll just get them snugged. Okay, so I've got the body of the machine reattached, just snugged in there. I don't have the screws tightened in case I need to make any adjustments. And then now what I'm going to do is put this, I guess this is supposed to be the chipper flywheel back on here. So that just lines up to this shaft. And one thing to note is that there's this metal sleeve or bushing that I've seen kind of fall off of here a couple of times. So if you're trying this yourself, you're going to want to make sure that doesn't fall off and disappear on you. So this thing here just has a D-shaped cutout that lines up with this D-shaped shaft. So you just get it roughly aligned and then spin it until it finds its home. And that's on there good. And then there was a large washer, again with a D-shaped cutout, and then a regular washer, and then this nut. And this seems to be a regular thread, so this screws on normally. Okay, so tightening this back up, there's a little bit of a trick to it. And what I did to actually loosen it as well is I removed the piston and I put this screwdriver in here. This is actually a Torx driver to kind of hold the piston while I spun the nut on this shaft. So, okay, hopefully this is somewhat visible. I'm actually holding the screwdriver in the piston here, and I'm using my stomach to kind of hold it. And then I've got the ratchet set up here, and I'm just tightening this flywheel against the piston, and it doesn't need to be real tight. Just enough to not fall off, I guess. Probably want to consult the service manual if you're interested in proper torque specs. But anyway, I was able to get that tightened up. And by the way, this is a 15mm socket. So the next thing to do is drop the blower assembly onto the bottom cover, and then okay, and then to mount the bottom cover, there are 11 screws around here, all around the outside, kind of the most obvious places to find, with the exception of one right here, which is kind of the mystery one. But at any rate, I'm going to put most of these in, and I'm going to put these 4 in, but I'm not going to tighten these down. Okay, so I've got the 7 bolts on the bottom of the cover in and tight, and then I went back and I tightened up these upper assembly bolts that I hadn't quite tightened all the way before, and now I've left these 4 on the shaft here loose. Just wasn't sure how well this was going to go in, but you can see that's just got a groove in it that mates with a couple of pins here. So this should just go in and twist, and that might still require 2 hands. Oh no, there we go. So that'll go in and twist, and then now I'll tighten up those 4 screws. Okay, so with that mounted, the last thing to do is put the plug back in. Okay, so I've got the plug in there and snugged up, and just like with everything else on this machine, don't want to tighten it too much and strip it. And there's the plug wire kind of put back on. So the moment of truth arrives. We'll see if this thing will start. Okay, I'm going to see if this thing will start. I've already primed it. I've got the thing choked. Got the throttle locked. And okay, going to try it with the throttle out. Okay, I think the repair was a success here. The pull start seems to be working good again, and the machine started up reasonably easy considering it's been sitting around for 4 or 5 years and hasn't run in that time. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hopefully this video was helpful.